So Luke, you mentioned the UK, but let's pull up the story from Fox KTVU real quick. Coronavirus surge swamping hospitals prompts indefinite California lockdown. All right, they're gonna have to get specific on that. What do you mean indefinite? You mean people are stuck in their homes forever? They say California's most densely populated area continues to set new death and hospitalization records and will remain under strict stay-home orders for the foreseeable future as another hospital filling coronavirus surge looms in mere weeks, public health officials said. LA County, which has recorded 40% of all COVID-19 deaths in the state, reported another 227 new deaths on Tuesday. Although the new daily record included reporting from holiday backlogs, the country's public health department also confirmed its highest number of hospitalizations reported in a day at more than 7,000 people, a nearly 1,000% increase from 2 months ago. California's top health official, Dr. Mark Ghaly, announced Tuesday an extension of the December 6th lockdown restrictions for the county and 22 others in Southern California and the agricultural San Joaquin Valley. The regions have about 60% of the state's population of 40 million and also have seen COVID-19 surges since the Thanksgiving holiday that have left hospitals struggling to find beds for emergency room and intensive care unit patients. Some hospitals have set up tents to hold ER patients, and one converted a disused cafeteria to handle patients. So they're saying indefinite lockdown. All right, the first thing is the constitutional question. How do you do that? That clearly violates our rights as American citizens. If people choose to go and assemble somewhere, they have a right to do so. The Constitution doesn't say unless there's an emergency. By what authority do they have to override that? But then here's the other side of that coin. I mean, they're giving us some crazy numbers. We got super COVID now. Gavin Newsom is saying we got the mutated COVID strain. Shouldn't we be scared of these things?
Well, we've been hearing about mutant strains for a while now. First, we heard it in the United Kingdom. Then we heard about it in South Africa. Then we heard about it in Nigeria. But also in April of this year, we heard about 30 other different strains of the coronavirus that happens. I think they're in Los Angeles, personally, facetiously speaking, I think they're just trying to make sure people don't escape before they all get taxed to death. And I think that's one of the
but they're trying to pass that law
where people get taxed even if they leave the state for a certain amount of years. Yeah, that you're still going to have to, because again, they've spent all their money and they're in a huge deficit. But I think it's pretty clear now. I don't know if you would agree with me, Chris, that these lockdowns are kind of counterintuitive.
Well, they're clubbish and ham-fisted, right? So here's what we've known for a long time. Listen, I'm not averse to the idea. You say we don't want to swamp our hospital systems. That's not good, right? Motorcycle victims don't get the treatment they need. Cancer patients can't go in for treatment. I get that.
And real quick, you're a doc. You have a PhD.
Yes, in a medical. I went to Duke University and got a degree in pathology. So
okay, all right. Well, tell us what's going on. You're the expert.
Well, if you're going to do a lockdown, first up, here's what we know. If I was going to draw a chart for you, I would say, you'd say, okay, who gets hit by this? Who dies? You have an exponentially increasing risk of death by age. So if you were going to do a lockdown, you'd say, we're going to lock down the old people, right? Not the young people. The chance of dying from this, if you're under the age of 30, is minuscule, really, really tiny. So I think a lockdown is everybody. Why is it everybody? You would think that somewhere along the way you could say, well, let's be clever about this. Let's take the people with comorbidities. Let's take the people who are immunocompromised. Let's take the elderly, and let's keep them safe, right? That would be part one. If you just on the subject of lockdowns, which isn't even getting me on the idea that we still to this day, the NIH has 0 outpatient treatments identified. They just say, go home, and if you feel worse, come back, and if it's bad enough, we'll put you in the hospital. That is literally, as of this morning, what was on the NIH website.
There's actually a good friend of mine got sick recently. I was talking to him on the phone, and they told me that they went to the doctor. The doctor told them they had COVID, and just go home and deal with it.
Yep.
And they were like, I don't think I have COVID. Like, they thought they had strep throat, something, they've had before and they needed antibiotics for, but the doctor said, no, we're going to treat it as COVID. Just go home. And if you get worse, then, call back. And that was it.
That's it. That's standard of care right now. And it's criminal as far as I'm concerned, because there are things that people can do. So for quick example, we've known since March, vitamin D. It's really more of a hormone, but vitamin D, the stuff you get if you go out into the sun, right? Which is hard to do in a lockdown when you're all stuck inside, right? But that stuff alone, we've had a Spanish study which showed that of people who are in critical condition, they measured their blood levels and they said, how much vitamin D do they have? So they discovered that people with lower than 17 nanograms per mil of vitamin D in their blood were 80% of their critical COVID patients.
Oh, wow.
Nobody with vitamin D above 21 nanograms per mil was even showing up in their critical ICU. So they said, wow, let's do a study. And they started giving this to people when they showed up at the hospital, and they cut deaths and they cut hospitalizations. Just vitamin D.
And I want to make one thing absolutely clear. We're not here to give anybody medical advice. Talk to your doctor, because you're going to hear a lot of things from a lot of people in a lot of different places. We've got serious criticism of Dr. Fauci now, because he's changed his numbers on herd immunity. He was the one who initially said, don't wear masks. Yep. So look, I'm here to say this. I don't care if you're left, right, up, down, whatever. It's your doctor who knows what's best for you. So take that seriously, and we'll give our opinions.
Yeah, and do your own research, your own homework. I mean, I personally decided to take vitamin D myself, but I know there's a chance of taking too much of it as well.
Exactly.
And I know that you should also get your blood tested to make sure that your levels are normal and not either too low or too high, because even if it's too high, it could be dangerous for you.
And one of the big issues I think we see that it sort of exacerbates a lot of censorship is that people will go online and they'll learn about something, maybe even like vitamin D, and then they might take too much. That's why you got to talk to your doctor. Your doctor is going to know better than we will about you. So, but anyway, I digress.
Well, even Dr. Fauci admitted finally that he's taking vitamin D on his own, right? But he said that to Jennifer Garner, so he might have been a little starstruck. He was on her blog, right? And she said, "What are you taking?" He said, "Well, I'm taking vitamin D." And so here's the person that people are nominally looking to the most, right?
Yeah.
What is the downside for somebody like that to say, here's what I'm doing, you might consider it too, but talk to your doctor?
Yeah.
And well, I want to make sure I pull this up. Dr. Fauci from CNBC.com is recommending vitamin D. So there you go.
Yeah, he could have done that in March.
He could have done
that
it.
would have been nice.
This was September.
The scary thing is there hasn't been a conversation about health. There hasn't been a conversation about vitamins, about diets, about exercise, about sleep, about stress, about exercise. There hasn't been real conversations about things that actually matter that will have a huge, tremendous effect on what we're dealing with right now.
That's fat shaming. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ableist.
I made a video about the fatties today. Not
gosh.
people are going to like that, but I think it's important to bring up the reality of the situation so people understand what they're getting themselves into.
It's a comorbidity.
Yes.
Obesity was a big factor.
And obesity is dramatically going up in the United States. Some would say as a byproduct of the industry buying off the government and, of course, implementing a lot of policies that have been very hurtful. And it's kind of strange that now a government that absolutely
What industry, though?
I mean, we're talking about industries like Monsanto and the fast food industry and the sugar industry. When you look at their impact on the market, when you look at their impact on human life, you see a huge, I would say, in my opinion, a detrimental impact that should be addressed, they should be held accountable for. But the larger point that I was trying to kind of point to and make here is that we're kind of left in the dark. And we don't know what to do, because when you even talk about this stuff, you risk getting censored and banned, which is absolutely ridiculous.
And you know why? The way the censorship works, it's not like there's a doctor at YouTube who's got like a checklist of the appropriate response, CDC guidelines going like, what did he talk about? He talked about, that's okay, we approve of that, we approve of it. No, it's like some 20-year-old dude going like, he's talking about medicine, like he's not a doctor, I'm going to ban this.
Even when you are a doctor.
Even doctors are getting banned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You didn't you get hit or something like that?
I did. I got a YouTube strike, and
and you're not a medical. Are you a medical doctor? No, you're not.
No.
But you have a doctorate in pathology.
Yeah, and I'm eminently qualified to read reports and analyze them. But in this case, all I was doing, there was a Senate testimony of a board-certified doctor who's in critical care, Dr. Corey, and he was giving Senate testimony. Basically, the headline of it is, "I can't keep doing this anymore." Those are his words. And what he meant was he couldn't watch people come into his critical care pulmonary center and die because he knew they didn't have to, because he'd seen all this data coming in from all over the world saying there are things we can do. And that was his testimony. So I thought, well, let me review that for people. And that's all I did. I reviewed a board-certified doctor's testimony, but that was deemed medical disinformation.
I think there's if I were to take like a simple if I was to assume the simple reason as to why YouTube is so incredibly censorious is that they're scared of the media. Because when this all started, when the Wall Street Journal smeared PewDiePie, then all of a sudden their advertisers just dropped off. And YouTube already is burning a hole in the pocket of Google, losing money. So they're just like, whatever the media says, we'll do. And so you get activists in media who will find any reason to accuse you of wrongdoing. And they've even removed, Rand Paul was giving a speech on the Senate floor on C-SPAN. YouTube deleted it. YouTube took the video down because, oh no, we can't have that. They're more worried about the negative public perception from media companies than allowing people to have this conversation, to hear this testimony. What was the Dr. Corey you said his name was?
Yeah, Dr. Corey.
He
Pierre
was,
Corey.
he was testifying to Congress, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not allowed anymore, I guess. So we're you know, I kind of feel like it's like, I don't know if you guys ever see one of those cartoons where they're on a mountainside, like driving on a road along a cliff, and then the car's like turning and the wheels are on the edge. That's what we're kind of getting into here. But you know, hey, whatever, so be it.
Well, you saw Rand Paul's dad, Ron Paul, got a ding. He got a YouTube strike.
Really?
Well, it's I'm sorry, it's Ron Paul's son, Rand Paul. Ron Paul's the original.
I know, Ron
Yes.
Paul, the
I'm just
original. Yeah.
Original Paul, yes.
The original.
Ron Paul, the
For
original.
COVID? Talking about COVID?
He covered a Trump rally, and he also got dinged with medical disinformation as the ding.
He's literally a
He's a
doctor.
Yeah, I know.
He was an OBGYN, right?
Yeah.
I love it. What? And it's crazy, man. Breitbart filmed. This is amazing. Breitbart was certified as credible by NewsGuard, which is like a Microsoft-funded, news credibility rating system. But then they filmed a press conference put on by a Republican representative and some doctors, and that was deemed enough to strike them down as not credible. They didn't even say anything. They just filmed other people talking at the Capitol with a politician.
But this is the bigger problem here that we really need to realize. The official line that they're going with keeps flip-flopping every week. Whether it's the World Health Organization or the CDC, they literally contradict themselves so many times and haven't come out with any concrete, legitimate information that has been consistent. I don't know about you, but I have a very hard time thinking that a government that never gave a damn about my health somehow now it's their number one priority. I think there's a lot of room to be skeptical here. But again, there's no consistency here. We don't know what the official line is because it keeps changing.
I don't think the government cares about anything. I think there's one thing collectively that's on the minds of politicians and bureaucrats. It's what will I do that's over the line that results in torches and pitchforks. That's the thing, right? That's are the people going to protest and rabble? Because protests, mostly, I'll tell you this, nonviolent civil disobedience works. But I don't think they care anymore, because the way I described it, earlier this year, you're only allowed to say bad things. There's no conversation where we can be like, hey, we have good news. A doctor said these things. It's positive. It's upbeat. It's a light at the end of the tunnel. They ban you for it. They ban you for it. You talk about this country brought up these treatments. Oh, Trump is crazy. He's wrong. He's lying. I could say something like, TechCrunch reported that Z-Pak, hydroxychloroquine was showing promising results in a French study, and then a smear piece comes out claiming, using twisted framing, Tim Pool claims that studies prove blah blah blah, but that's not true. Even though it's like, they'll try and make sure you can't say anything positive. So what ends up happening is all the news that comes out is super COVID is here, hospitals are overrun, everyone's sick and dying, it's getting worse, it's worse, it's worse, it's worse. And so then everyone just keeps getting more and more scared. And that results in the snowball rolling down the hill of the story only going crazier and crazier. Because imagine this. Right now, what we know is there are many hospitals that are being overrun. Mm-hmm. We see the photos and the videos of the nurses there, and their faces, and they're like the marks on their face from the PPE, and they're tired, and they're beat, and their hair's all messed up. Most hospitals, is my understanding, are actually okay. There's tons of videos of hospitals that have not been, overrun, and that's because hotspots are centralized in certain areas. But we're not getting video after video after video of hospitals that are okay. We're getting video after video after video of hospitals that are doing worse. And then we're getting videos of nurses dancing. I guess that's kind of the positive, I suppose.
Glad they have time for that.
Right.
Yeah. But the main point I'm trying to make is, if the only thing you ever hear and are allowed to hear is that things are getting worse, you don't actually know. Like, there's no balance to this conversation. Is there a chance for optimism? Can't tell you that, because we'll be censored if we do. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and as a scientist, this actually bothers me a lot. This whole idea that there is a central body, that there's an agreed upon set of facts that we know. We don't know crap about this at this point in time, right? So here what we know, it's a novel coronavirus. Can I even say this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say
You
that
can
word?
say vaccine,
Novel
you can say coronavirus.
Yeah.
You
A
can
novel
say those.
coronavirus? I can do
You
that?
can say that, yes.
Oh, it's so
I mean,
free here.
look. If we get banned, whatever.
So it's novel, which means we have to try some things, right? And the whole thing about the Dr. Corey in his testimony, he said, look, we don't need the latest whiz-bang stuff out of pharma. That would be great. But we have 100 years of medical and medicine development, and we have things that work. And by the way, we try things all the time off-label. We try things for other things, and they work all the time. In fact, We do all sorts of off-label stuff already with kids. You give them like, SSRIs and all that stuff. That's off-label, right?
Aren't there like medications that have a side effect of weight loss that they prescribe to people to lose weight? Like, isn't there stuff like that too? That's off-label, right?
Yeah, and everything has a side effect. Everything. Water, take too much, you have a side effect. But I would just think that at some point, this whole idea, we can't have that positive news. Isn't the nation just like ready for some of that relief? Wouldn't everybody just be kicking their heels up if we said, there's something that some doctors are saying is really effective. And by the way, there's a lot of them that's better than go home and come back to the hospital if you feel worse.
If it bleeds, it leads. So, Lady just pulled this up. This is from Fortune.com. U.S. news coverage of COVID has been more negative than in other countries, researchers find.
Not surprised.
And that's a fact. Like you mentioned, you got a strike right, on YouTube, and Ron Paul did as well. And you are a PhD in a pathologist, and Rand Paul is literally a doctor. Well, I should say he's retired. But man, how crazy is that?
So I started reporting again January 23rd. Within a couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half or so, my wiki page, which had been up for over a decade, got yanked, got taken down. And the complaint was that I was talking about things that were out of my wheelhouse, that I had no authority, that in fact I wasn't a practicing scientist and all this stuff. Now, I'm a published scientist, and it's true, I've been doing other things besides conducting science for a while, but that doesn't invalidate the training or the degree or what I know, right?
Have the papers that you've gotten published in scientific journals been invalidated or removed? So it's all currently standing science.
It is, yes.
Well, this happens in many different instances in many different kind of areas. For me personally, they got me because I didn't believe in the Russian collusion after Donald Trump's victory when he first won the presidency, and they delisted me. They depersoned me on Wikipedia and said that this is a person that shouldn't even be mentioned or referenced, no matter what he does, no matter what news he breaks.
They're trying so hard just to get rid of stuff. I'll tell you, there's been a lot of attempts at somehow finding a way to smear me because I'm fairly boring, tepid commentary for the most part. But there was an article I read from Fox Business about Seth Rich, and then there was a statement from Kin.com. They claimed that by talking about it and arguing that it wasn't definitive, I was pushing a conspiracy theory. And then NBC writes that and airs on TV. I'm a conspiracy theorist. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of other outlets just repeat it without any basis, any fact checking, any sourcing at all. Even though I'm the one who's constantly raining on all the parades of these people, saying it's probably not true. Occam's razor, simple solution, and I don't believe in any of this stuff. Doesn't matter. They need to find a way to discredit you and take you down. And I'm surprised they outright deleted your Wikipedia page. That's bold, but that's one way to do it. Because I think one of the issues is who's going to write negative things about you and what's their grounds to do it. Right? You're a published scientist giving your thoughts and opinions. Quick, get rid of them. Because if they can't smear you and find a way to do it, they have to just get rid of you, right?
Right. So I wasn't big enough to not be gotten rid of, right? You have to be big enough so that it makes too much of a stink, So I think already by early February, this means that there was a very serious attempt at message control. And my view was, remember at the time, like New York Times, Washington Post, they're all saying, oh, it's just the flu. It's no worse than the flu. And I was like, no, this is totally different. Here's some of the virology behind it. This thing has got a lot of keys into the human locks. And it's a little bizarre. And I was saying we need to take this really seriously. And at the time, I was totally in conflict with the WHO because they were saying, well, we shouldn't shut down travel. And I was just reading their own pandemic handbook. That's what I was sourcing from. And I was saying, no, that's actually step one. You stop travel. Of course you do. Even George Washington, when he was facing a huge outbreak of smallpox, first thing he did was he stopped people traveling to and from his army.
Didn't he write letters telling people to get vaccinated too?
They had some like that little stick thing that they could do.
Yeah, there was like a letter going around where George Washington was apparently like, get the smallpox vaccine.
That was my first moment. I'm a scientist. I'm trying to share data. I think this is interesting. It could help people get prepared. I was telling people to get PPE, N95 masks way before they got sold out, all that. But then I'm confused. I'm like, how is the WHO getting like its own handbook for this wrong? And then my Wikipedia page gets taken down. And then I've just run my YouTube subscriber count was just skyrocketing, and it leveled off the day I mentioned hydroxychloroquine. It's been literally plus or minus 1,000 for 8 months. Wow. It's just flat at 365,000.
That's the
just
way
flat.
It works, man.
Yep.
Well, we also have to remember during that specific time, it wasn't just the World Health Organization going against their own guidelines. It was also many politicians in the mainstream media saying it's xenophobic to stop travel,
Yes,
that it's
remember that?
racist to stop travel.
Look-
and then politicians told you to go to the Chinese Day Parade and to go celebrate to show that everyone's not racist.
Come on down to Chinatown.
Yeah.
Don't be racist. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.